What word or phrase comes to mind when thinking about the Metal Gear Solid franchise? Now, if you said stealth, you're basic, but I respect you. Most people probably did. But if you instead said tactical espionage action, I'd know for sure that you were a true fan of the franchise. Not that stealth would necessarily be a wrong answer per se, because it does describe how one would typically go about enjoying these games. However, the true essence of these games lies in those three words, hidden in the subtext of the cardinal title of the Solid franchise: tactical espionage action. Words that's definitions are as broad as your mind allows them to be, and for good reason.
Kept you waiting, huh?
The Metal Gear games are notoriously open-ended. Well, as far as the combat goes. Each installment tactfully drip feeds the player with access to a variety of different weapons and equipment, offering more and more freedom to engage the enemy however they see fit. With more progress in the story comes more options for your loadout. This is especially true when you get to games like Metal Gear Solid 5, where Snake is set on various espionage missions, strapped with enough explosives to take out a small village, if you so choose. Sure, you're docked points on a fictional mission scorecard, but what does Kojima think this is? High school? I don't give a fuck about grades. That's where the action comes in. High octane or slow and methodical, this is, in my opinion, the crown adjective of the MGS games, and is by far my favorite part. As linear as the majority of the titles in this series are, the sandbox aspects of them takes shape in the form of their approach to action. I can never get enough of these games and always find myself being pulled back into playing them at least once every other year or so. Well, at least the second one. Shut up! It took my franchise virginity, alright? Leave me alone about it. Anyways, preamble aside, I'm here to play some Metal Gear, and specifically the fifth one. But this time, I wanted to see how possible this was to play as a completely different game's protagonist. Today, let's find out if it's possible to beat Metal Gear Solid 5 as Agent 47. Rules. Every enemy is to be dealt with silently and without anyone knowing or finding out about it. Simply put, no combat alerts. Every enemy in the target POI must be taken out. Every enemy also must be hidden from sight from other guards in either a designated hiding spot or a vacant building, with the max allowed being held at a time being 2. And snipers positioned in a lookout tower can be neutralized and left there with a limit of 1 body per tower. Checkpoints are allowed, and infinite silencer because duh. And now I want to go over the loadout that I used as it relates to what Agent 47 would have access to. As iconic as 47's silver ballers are, I unfortunately don't have the ability to dual wield in this game, but acting as their replacement is the AMD 114-9. This is the pistol that is available from the very start of the game, but the one I'm using is going to be fully upgraded. This pistol is to Big Boss what the silver ballers are to 47, so it seemed fitting. Next up was the M2000-D. This weapon I felt mirrored the classic R93 sniper from the earlier Hitman games, as it was a bolt action and its magazine capacity is 5. However, the caliber does vary from the 308 rounds from the R93 to the 7.62 of the M2000. But honestly, who cares? Now onto my support weapons. I brought the magazines as a coin substitute, petrol bombs as my Molotov cocktails, the LLG mines as a substitute for the emitted gas device, and EMN mines as the remote tasers. And lastly, smoke grenades for, oh shit, I don't think 47 has smoke grenades. Nope. Well, good thing I never ended up using them. And as for the items section of my loadout, there's surprisingly not a lot I could reasonably rationalize 47 using, except the noctocyanin. This little pill, when consumed, allows Metal Gear 47 to see everyone through walls, just as Hitman does with 47's instincts. And as far as Fultons go, I'm obviously not going to be using them. I honestly ran a big chunk of the missions in this game, but some of them felt really cheap, or I had to fudge the rules a little bit when it came to where I was dumping the bodies, so I chose my 4 favorite episodes that I thought gave me the most challenge: the War Economy, Pitch Dark, Code Talker, and Skullface. That should cover everything. Oh, except one last rule: no buddies, only the Jeep. Alright, let's finally get this show on the road, starting with the War Economy. Wait, stop. Hate to break it to you, but you've been spending too much on games, my dude. I mean, haven't you noticed that Steam sales aren't what they used to be lately? Well, that's where this video's sponsor, Instant Gaming, is here to help us with. Instant Gaming is a website where you could find some pretty kick-ass deals on some of the latest games. Hell, I was even able to save money on a pre-order of Kingdom Come 2, and I think it's still on sale for a pretty damn good price. That's for a brand new game. Now, how does instant gaming actually do this though? That sounds like kind of a backwards business model, right? There's no way that that's possible. Well, think of it like Costco. You save money when you buy in bulk there, especially on things like toilet paper or like paper towels. Well, instant gaming does the same thing with their game keys, and lucky for us, they pass some of that savings on to us. I personally use instant gaming to find deals on games I'm interested in, and I encourage you to as well. And at the very least, just click the link in the description, poke around their website for a little bit, and you may find something for you. Either way, thank you to Instant Gaming for sponsoring this video. Now let's get back to some Metal Gear. As I drove up to Nova Braga Airport, I chose to approach it from the eastern side since there's only one sniper covering this entrance. After dispatching him at range with my M2000, I took my first dose of knocked out cyanin to begin marking my enemies and planning my next move. Once I'd tagged as many enemies as possible from my vantage point, I got up to move closer and take care of the next nearest enemy, who was on the move now just inside the gate. Unfortunately, I was unaware that my enemy had CCTV cameras posted to help watch over this gate, and they caught me in the act, triggering an alarm. Starting back from a checkpoint affords me some valuable time savings, as now I won't have to waste a bunch of time marking those enemies all over again. Starting again, I took out the guard in the tower, then moved in closer to take out the camera. As I'm closing in to set up a shot on the next guard in my way, a call comes over the radio from the enemy command, saying that they've lost a security camera and the closest person should go check it out. Fortunately, I think the dude I just took out and dumped in the closest dumpster was that guy, so at this point I was still pretty free and clear. I swallowed another wall hacking pill to get a better idea of where my enemies were and to see if there was anyone sneaking up on me. Fortunately, no one was, and after marking a few more enemies on walker gears, I continued my push into the airport. The next guard was on the move, and I didn't feel like I could get a clean shot off on him, so I chose to try and move in closer and maybe distract him with a thrown magazine. But he was already far too busy getting into the parked Jeep to be distracted. However, in the process, I would attract a totally different guard's attention. These two guards I did eventually get away from, but almost immediately screwed up trying to execute him on his way back to his post. Third bullet's the charm. He too was tucked into a nearby dumpster for his eternal rest. I shot the next camera I'd be walking by, forgetting that it would draw attention my way, but carried on, taking another knockdown to begin marking more enemies. As the chopper came rolling in, I carried on through the left side of the airport from my entry point. I spotted something I'd not seen before, but no isn't uncommon, a double spawn, but on a watchtower guard this time. Usually I'd only see one guard posted in this position, but these guys were a first for me. I sprinted along to reach the far wall for cover and continued inwards toward my targets, until I was nearly caught by another damn camera, and also the closest walker gear. I backed off under the cover of the perimeter wall to shoot the camera and let the chopper pass overhead, and during this time a special alert came in over the enemy radio that shuffled everyone's positions around. I waited a while to let things cool off, then began my approach once more, albeit a bit more cautious this time, only to abruptly throw that strategy right out the window and knock the helmet off the guy of the walker gear, not really thinking of the consequences of this action, only to obviously be instantly caught up on this mistake. Okay, speedrun this time. Sniper, around the camera's vision, shield man just inside the gate, disposal of said shield man. This time, however, I took a different approach to these next two guards by shooting them both in the face, disposing of one in the dumpster and the other in the toilet. There's a ton of dumping grounds around Nova Braga, so to speak. Then, for some reason, I sprinted across the front of all these buildings that could have provided me some much needed cover from the sniper's position atop the airport, and subsequently almost got spotted by them. To be honest, I'm actually surprised that I wasn't. I saw the incoming helicopter, popped an instinct pill, and looked for my opportunity to approach the walkers patrolling the hangar. If alone, these walkers are really easy to fool. Just sprint up behind them, then once they turn to look in that direction, you'll be behind them with a gun to their back, forcing them off their mech. This guy didn't want to be shot for some reason, so I made him want to. I didn't have a spot for his body just yet, so I dropped him here for now. Looping around the hangar now, I come across two more guards, one of them piloting another mech. I sniped the stationary one's face off, and then did the same goofy move to the guy on the walker as I did to the last one. I dumped him in the closest dumpster and the other guy in the closest porta potty. Now for the first walker gear pilot. I had to carry his ass all the way to damn near where I entered this area and put him in one of the numerous empty dumpsters over here. And after doing so, I completely forgot where I was and ran straight into the view of the camera that I didn't shoot earlier and triggered an alert. Restarting once more, and now knowing that these first 4 enemies and 2 cameras are nothing to 47 anymore, I dispatch and conceal of them in each of their respective spots, then move over to the first walker gear to give him the old knock knock who's there and put an end to his life, placing him into the dumpster this time around. Sneaking up on this second walker gear was cake as usual, and I disposed him in the local toilet. The guy who got sniped in the face in the last attempt was on rotation this time around, and so after catching him with his pants down, I sent him to the shadow realm. While trying to relocate his body to a secluded building, the chopper began taking off again, putting me right in its sightlines, but not long enough to alert it. While waiting for it to finish its search, I spotted a dumpster just outside and took care of the body here instead. The chopper and I danced around this building for a while until it went back to resuming its normal duties, giving me the freedom to climb the stairs up a floor and remove the high point sniper from his existence, considering this area a tower and his body was now hidden. Then continued up yet another flight of stairs to take care of one of the guards posted on the lower parts of the roof. This one's body I stored in the toilet that I passed on my way up here. As I'd completed this action, the arms dealer and the CFA official began their movement towards the truck and the hangar to tour the area. I waited for them to reach the hangar before making my move, but this was mostly because the chopper was puppy guarding the area. Once I had gotten to them though, I must have been making too much noise and spooked the arms dealer into turning around to spot me. Though quickly springing into action, I slammed them both so hard to the ground that they'd be incapacitated long enough to put a bullet between their eyes. Thankfully, enough time had passed that the nearby dumpster and toilet that I'd previously hidden bodies in were now empty, and these two could now occupy the space. I passed through the fence in hopes of hiding from the chopper, only to get stuck waiting out it going overhead anyway. After it passed, I ran around to the next gateway to take care of the spotlight operator nested here. Then entered the airport once again to reach the main building and put down a man station just inside. I was gonna just store him in this building, but that felt kinda cheap for some reason, and so I took him down to the toilet that I'd stored the guy from the roof in earlier. As I crested the stairs once more, I just missed my shot at the guard patrolling this little courtyard area in the back, so I instead turned to the last remaining sniper on the roof. He, of course, turns to look just as I'm coming up on him. Pause. But I'm able to grab him just before anything can happen and stick him in the heart with my knife. As I'm carrying this dude's body down to the dumpster at street level, I seize an opportunity to pop a pistol round into a guard patrolling right past me, just a floor down. The roof guard was put in the bin first, while the second I had to lug to the other side of the building and put him in the bin over here. Just 3 enemies remained at this point, 2 on walkers and 1 on foot patrolling the back buildings. I saw an easy opportunity to hold up one of the walkers just outside the main building, and so I took it. Then proceeded to hide him away in the trash between the 2 buildings that the chopper and I danced around earlier. From here, I rushed back to the guard on foot to hold him up from behind and for variety's sake, plunge a knife into his chest. Doing so just feet away from an empty dumpster. One last guard on a walker gear to get rid of, then I could finally exit the hot zone and finish this mission. Though the chopper wasn't ready for me to go just yet. I finally got my chance and almost ruined it by pulling the trigger a bit too early, but after multiple back shots, I wore him down enough to fall off his mech and into my heart. I mean, into this dumpster. I left the airport, got back to my Jeep, and took off for the exit, wrapping up this mission as complete.
Alright, mission complete, boss. Maybe you'll actually break a sweat next time, huh?
Oh boy. If you're no stranger to the other videos I've done on Metal Gear Solid 5, you know I hate this fucking mission. I mean, actually, I don't really hate it. I absolutely fucking love it, actually. But man, does it test my patience. Anyway, let's kick this mission off by skipping all the cutscenes and other bullshit, and after I've made it off the chopper, I pretty much just make a mad dash to Methydna. I mean, the guy who's supposed to be in the watchtower ends up climbing down as soon as I get up to the top of the hill, so I can pretty much just hop down off this embankment, enter my Jeep, and jet off with no problems. Now, once I come up to Methydna and overlook the area from a good vantage point, I make an effort to mark as many guards as possible, and manage to get pretty much all but 3 of them. Even catching the attention of one of the guards closer to me as I'm standing up on this cliff in broad daylight wearing a suit. This first attempt was full of stupid little fuck-ups as I tried to get my bearings, though none of these fuck-ups really resulted in failures, just sloppy Hitman work. Many missed shots, messy kills, and multiple suspicions, all culminating in a final act of sloppiness by accidentally killing a man in view of another. Upon reloading from a checkpoint, I find myself spawned into an interesting location, but nothing I can't work with. Seeing an easy opportunity, I snipe at the man posted in the tower, then move forward to take out the next enemy in my path in much of the same way. This side of the map doesn't really have very many hiding spots for bodies, however, it does have the endless void that is just over the railing. giving me the perfect spot to dump bodies to ensure no one will ever find them. The dumping of these bodies over the railing does make a decent amount of noise for some reason, so as I tossed this first body, it caught the attention of a guard on a nearby patrol. I sat and waited until he got close enough to CQC, and after waking him back up, I took him from behind and plunged a hole into his chest using my knife, tossing him over the railing with his buddy. I climbed up to the level that this guy came from to press further around the oil field. As I'm moving around, I do attract some suspicion from a guard that was pretty far away, and after waiting out his investigation, I gave him a gift on his way out, he too being disposed of over the railing. The next two on my list were talking with one another, so I'd need to wait out this interaction before I could then lure the one who remained closer to me, to then slam him into the railing and dump his unconscious body into the ether, killing him instantly. And I'm not sure why I did what I did next. I thought it was a good idea at the time to take out my sniper and shoot an enemy that was clearly on the other side of the base as me, and I had no way of disposing of his body at the time. Well, it didn't matter anyway, because as soon as I'd shot him, the whole base went on alert, and I ended up restarting from the checkpoint once again. My third, fourth, fifth, sixth, and seventh attempts were just a mess all around, and I don't want to get into it. After numerous failures trying to break in through this side of the base, I decided to try the other, still making sure to take care of these first three guards before looping around the outside walls. I did have some trials and tribulations with this side of the base as well, since the majority of the opposition was more so stacked on this side, but they're so spread out that it's kind of an advantage. Eventually, after enough repeated trials, it all clicked. So obviously you have the first three, the Lookout, the Oblivious, and the Curious. Then I ran around the complex to hop over the wall and make enough noise to interest the guard inside. When he came to investigate, I knocked him out, executed him, and stored him in the toilet. I then ran over to climb up some boxes and leap over the walls again to get in a position to eliminate the man guarding the road. After doing so, I moved his body back into the complex and into a different set of toilets. The next guy on my target list had another guard on patrol walking by him at this moment, so I stalled for time while he made his way away. After he'd left, I took out my sniper and put one right in his left temple, dumping this one in the dumpster to switch things up a little. At this point, I was a little ahead of my schedule, so I actually caught another guard on patrol by luring him out of sight by tossing a magazine, then throwing his body over the railing to get rid of the evidence. Except for this pool of blood and enemy rifle on the ground, but don't worry about that. I wasn't paying attention as I was making my way back to look for another target, and one just happened to fall into my lap by briefly catching sight of me lurking about. On his way out from his investigation, he parted ways with his mortal vessel, knowing that he'd simply failed to do his job. Over the railing you go. At this point, it felt like the enemies were just lining up for me, begging for me to end them and toss them over the edge. After one more guard was taken care of and disposed of, I made my way up to the room where the transfer pump button was located, taking out the single guard sitting in front of it and storing him just inside, choosing not to hit the button until I'd cleared the area completely. In a rush to get to the next guard I saw, I made a few clear mistakes, but ultimately worked it out, drag scoped his ass, and hit him in the dumpster for being trash. Just two dudes remained on this side of the oil field, one up on the catwalks minding his own business. Oh well, I can't get to him. And the other too busy looking for an empty magazine falling from the sky to care about a bullet in the back of his skull. Rest in peace. Oh, sorry, excuse me. I guess that wasn't all of them on this side, as a new challenger had just appeared. He's making his way up the catwalk, and unfortunately for him, I'm too sneaky as he joins his buddies in the ether. Just 3 more to go now, and as I'm lurking about, one of them sees me from afar, and turns out this was purely only a benefit to me, just like lambs to a slaughter. As soon as he was tossed overboard, I took care of his buddy, and unfortunately this shot sent his body falling down to the next floor for some reason, which caught the attention of the very last guy. And instead of panicking, I calmly dropped down, waited for my opportunity, then took him out with ease. These two were then tossed into the ether. I went up to go push the button, revealing all my hard work, and then explode the fuel tank with a long-range petrol bomb. I then snuck around the incoming patrol since they aren't a part of the contract, and I got out of the hot zone in one piece.
All right, mission complete, boss. Maybe you'll actually break a sweat next time, huh?
Code Talker is actually, honestly, one of my favorite missions in this game. I think it's due to the variety of gameplay you can get in just one mission. There's several ways that this mission could play out due to how you handle the skull snipers at the very beginning. Now, so how did I choose to handle them for this run? Well, initially my plan was to take them all out during the very first encounter, which, to be fair, didn't go too terribly bad. But after I'd finished up with them and got up to the mansion, I realized that this wasn't the right way to go about this. The entire mansion team was now on alert since the skulls were just neutralized and they were somehow privy to it. Oh well, I have plenty of experience getting past these skulls undetected, so restarting the mission isn't all that bad. Once I'd passed them and got up to the mansion, I used my instinct to mark everyone guarding it, missing just a couple before it ran out. I made my way up the right bank of the river and followed it under the mansion connecting bridge thing. I don't know what you call this thing, but I went under that and got to the other side where there were far less guards, thinking they would be easier to deal with. Well, they probably would have been, had I made my shots. This failure had me restarting just down the hill from the mansion, so no big deal. I went up the same way and over to the same targets as last time, but this time pulling off the double kill and hiding the bodies in some nearby dumpsters without a hitch. One near the river and the other just inside the mansion. After dumping them, I turned to head upstairs in hopes to find some unwilling participants in a game of hide the body. It took a bit of waiting, but eventually I found two, and I was able to successfully hold both of them up, but accidentally prematurely shot at one while thinking I would hit the other. This led to a panic and thus many shots being shot. One guard just outside heard all the commotion and began running in my direction, and I thought I'd catch him at a door, but realized that there wasn't one close by. I still had time. I put the still alive guard writhing in pain on the ground out of his misery, and then picked up the other one to move him out of sight. As soon as I'd set him down though, the guard from outside had shown up and found the other body. I'd surprisingly remained calm at this point and peeked out from cover just enough from the bookcase to pin one right between his eyes, bringing everything back down to a more chill level. There's surprisingly a lot of dumpsters inside this mansion. I don't know why, but I'm not gonna complain. I was able to eventually find one for each of my 3 recently fallen friends to be stored in, then I found my way back inside the mansion to look for even more victims. I set my sights on 2 guards who I thought were inside with me, but it turned out that they weren't. As soon as I'd reached the door separating us though, they began their movement to come inside, which was my opportunity to hold them both up and take care of this smoothly. Except no, it's never that simple. However, I still managed to keep my cover, storing one of their bodies in the last unused dumpsters in the area, and the other I'd brought to one of the earlier used dumpsters in hopes that the previous body had decomposed. As fate would have it, it was now empty and I was now body free. Just 5 guards remain now, only one of them being a solo act, so I went after him, taking him down with ease, as expected, and storing him in the old OG dumpy. I went back inside to try and find a good location to spring out on the traveling pair a few floors up from me, and as I was stalking them, one of them decided it was time to go on patrol again, and began walking in my direction. I backed off to head back inside, but I guess I'd opened the door a bit too loudly, and they were now on their way to check things out. This is where I let my intrusive thoughts win a little bit. You can all probably tell what's gonna happen here. I couldn't miss this opportunity of a lifetime, so I went for it. I busted through that door, slammed the other guy into the wall, and grabbed the first one to plunge a knife into his chest. Body, meet dumpster. Dumpster, meet body. 2 guards remained, and with the oldest trick in the book, I'm able to pull their attention with an empty magazine and dome them both in the head, disposing of both of them in, you guessed it, dumpsters. Now it was time to get to Code Talker. Once he was loaded up on my back, I was pretty much free to get the hell out of here, but I did take out some zombies just to make my life easier. I also wanted to get rid of the skulls too before I got out of here, and managed to find 3 and eliminate them, but couldn't find the 4th, so I just went ahead and exfilled with Code Talker after such a successful mission.
Yes, mission complete. Boss, that was exceptional.
This bitch-ass mission has you infiltrating OKB-0, but you all likely knew that. But did you know that there's also a lot of enemies in this mission? Oh, you did? Shit. Well, so then you know how hard it is. No, you say? You could just throw a smoke on a car and drive through the middle of it without getting caught, you say? Well, yeah, but that's not gonna work for today's challenge. But you're right, this mission isn't all that hard, especially with the checkpoint being given after each layer penetrated. Now, I fucked up this mission a lot. That's why its recording length is almost an hour and a half long, but I'm gonna cover this one a bit differently than the other 3 and split it up into 3 distinct chambers. Well, 4, since there's an entrance gate. So starting there, I drove my Jeep up to where I figured I'd be far enough away so that I could safely mark all the enemies up here. I was wrong. Sussed out immediately by the sniper, I ducked down to the left and decided to tackle this area from the usual direction. I snuck around over and up to where the left side spotlight operator was, and just as I went to take him out, a sandstorm hit. Lucky me. I took out this first enemy, then left him to get rid of the other two, the walker gear and the lone wolf, while I still had the cover of the sandstorm. After everyone out here was dealt with, I went back down the hill with one of the bodies on my back to toss him over the edge, but also to grab my vehicle so I could load up 3 of the 4 remaining bodies and drive it off the cliff, killing 3 birds with 1 stone. Finally going back up to get rid of the first but final body, then climbing the wall to part 2. Over this wall, I found rather quickly that there were some immediate threats on the other side of this wall. One was this sniper all the way across the area, and the other was the spotlight operator closest to me. Both of these targets were in the way of me reaching the more appropriate side to approach from. So I prioritized taking out the sniper and distracted the operator with a thrown magazine, since I didn't have a safe enough plan of getting to and hiding his body just yet. And speaking of, as I came around to this side of the camp, I had reached the sniper's body and stuck him in a nearby toilet. I kept pushing in from this side of the area since I could just double back, coming from the opposite direction, and be behind all the rest of my targets. After waiting out the walker gear patrol, I took out the lone guard left in my sights. He was promptly stored in the closest dumpster I could find. As I knew the 2 patrolling guards would just come back through this way, I sat to lie in wait, and as soon as they'd gone by me, I held one up and shot the other in the face. The disarmed one I told to lie on the ground for now, as I'd grabbed his buddy and moved on to my next target. Once he was dealt with, I could then store the body I'm carrying in the toilet and this fresh corpse in the dumpster behind the closest spotlight operator. Since at this point I don't have any free dumping grounds, I force this operator to the ground as well and move on to someone else. Someone like this guy, who's next to an empty toilet, begging to be stuffed into it. There's just 1 more free dumpster just down the hill and 3 more foot soldiers in a walker gear left. Well, I decided that the first to be dealt with would be the pair walking together. I managed to do the same thing as the last pair, held one up while shooting the other in the face. It's a common theme with me in this game. I ordered the disarmed one onto the ground and took his buddy to the dumpster. Finally, I took out the last of the foot soldiers, but caught the attention of the walker in the process. I managed to shake him, but my dumbass goes and does something insanely stupid like this.
What the? Got a shooter!
Well, the next attempt goes pretty much the same, except this guy went here, these 2 got dumped here and here, this guy went here like last time, this guy I ordered to get down, and took out the lighting guy once again. Of course, getting seen by the walker gear all over again. Only this time, I ran far away, out the front gate for 2 reasons. 1, I needed to get away from the walker gear. Duh. 2, I was able to dispose of the body off the cliff. This inadvertently triggered the checkpoint again, and thank God, because I went and did some dumbass shit again, like this. But after a checkpoint reload, I get it right and take his body in the nearest available and take care of his body in the nearest available toilet. Then clean up the last 2 guards in the area so I could move on to the next stage. And honestly, this was the worst part of it all, since there were plenty of enemies, and I mean plenty, an attack helicopter, and a few cameras all working against me. The route I took was fairly simple, but the biggest problem in this area was the lack of hiding spots and the surplus of bodies that needed disposed of. I started by jumping down to the ground floor and heading through this first building, being sure to wait out the chopper overhead. I faked a sprint to the right to the next building to throw off my enemy, then actually went left to hold them both up and execute them, storing one in the dumpster and the other in the closest building. After ensuring the camera wasn't looking, I passed by and sprinted up the stairs towards my next pair of enemies to do much of the same thing to them that I did to the first 2, minus the juke. The first body I took to a bin that was almost into the 3rd gate, and the second I took to the very first room I'd passed through. I ran back to where my enemies were crowded to see what I could see and successfully caught the attention of a couple nearby guards. Now, I'd planned to take them out with some sleeping gas, but foolishly used it on myself. Thankfully, my magazine toss prompts a call into command and they were stalled long enough for me to wake up. Unfortunately, I'd somehow switched the sleeping gas with the electrical mine used for stopping cars without knowing it, but still managed to pull something out of my ass relatively quickly and remained undetected. After storing these 2 bodies, I turned around and noticed 2 enemies pacing up a level from me, and I figured I could try luring them down to me by making some noise, and so I tried just that. Thankfully, only one of them came down here since there was already a body being stored in this building. However, after the successful kill, I decided to try seeing if the dumpster was empty so as I could keep this spot free for future use. And it was, so I did. After this, I wanted to go and find his partner, wherever he'd went, and I think I went the wrong way, since I was led to damn near the 3rd gate, again, and actually, I found that these enemies were actually on the other side of the gate, but I didn't even decide to split this mission up until I started writing. Anyways, I'd lured one of the 2 guards positioned here as I placed the correct trap this time and waited for him to step into it. Once he was asleep, I shot him in the head to take him out and carried him down to stuff him in the toilet just a floor down from me, capturing the attention of even more enemies, 1 foot soldier and 1 walker gear. I'll let these next clips just speak for themselves. Starting from the checkpoint I'd gained when crossing the 3rd gate, I went about putting this guy in the toilet once more, this time not being noticed. In this attempt, I managed to make my way deeper into the base on the bottom floor so I could get around and behind my enemy. I get across the main road and take out the soldier over here, storing him in one of the rooms of the locked building. I knew a patrol would come by the perimeter of this building, so I set up a sleep gas trap for them and of fucking course. The range of this shit is ridiculous. One of the 2 I stored in a separate room as the other guy in the locked building, and the other I transported all the way across the road again and into a different empty building. Upon exiting this building, I grabbed the attention of a guard who's just a bit too curious without bringing backup and finds the same fate as many of his brothers before him, actually taking his body to a completely different building for literally no reason at all. And now there were only like 5 more enemies to get rid of before facing Skullface. The spotlight operator was easy enough, except for the fact that he fell off the platform and would be seen by the incoming walker. I managed to distract the walker before he found his fallen comrade, and since this locked building close by had 4 different rooms in it, I snuck 1 extra body allowance on it since it seemed appropriate and this is definitely not a cop-out. Last but not least was the guy on the walker gear who, after luring him over to me, was easily taken care of. Officially going over that last gate where there were just 4 guards remaining, and they're all pretty stupid. 2 of the 4 make their way over towards me where I could easily watch as they'd pass by and take a bullet to their skulls. I take one of their bodies back over the gate to the dumpster on the other side, then came back with sniper in hand to pick off the guard that repositioned up top. Lastly, I took no chances with the final walker gear and shot him without a second thought, storing his body in a local dumpster. Then I picked up the other 2 to hide them in some living quarters up by the dude I'd just sniped. Then I'd finally march up those stairs, confront Skullface, and finish my challenge. Thank you all for tuning into this episode of Sweaty Asks Dumb Questions. If you're not subscribed and you're still here, you should probably do that. You and I obviously vibe. But if not, whatever. I'll still see you in the next one. Bye-bye.